we will have a special featured address by co-founder and chairman of Infosys, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, someone who is rightly recognized as a person who's authored India's technology and digital transformation in the past few decades, and someone who built the digital ID program as both within and outside the government, and built a whole cohort of youngsters, entrepreneurs, and believers who have embraced technology as a medium of transformative change. So to hear about this journey of India, innovation, transformation, and the road ahead, I am delighted to present to you Mr. Nandan Nilekani. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Samir, and it's great to be here. Namaste, everyone. And it's really a privilege to be addressing this extraordinary group of people who have come together at Raisina. I only have 10 minutes, so it's going to be a crisp presentation. I'll talk about India's tech journey and what's happened and what's coming. Now, those of you who have been coming regularly to India have seen that every year they come, something changes. More people have smartphones. More people are making payments on the roadside vendor with their phones. They are showing their phone to show their IDs. So something is happening around us. And these are changes that happened over many years. But at some point, they all came together. And as I realized today, they all came together the same year the Raisina Dialogue was launched. So 2016 was the year that changed everything. On April 4th, 2016, India launched 1 billion Aadhaar issued, which were the IDs that we gave everyone. Today, there are 1.3 billion IDs. The next generation payment platform called UPI was launched on April 11th. On September 2nd, the central bank issued the guidelines for something which allows us to democratize credit. On September 5th, Jio launched the network with free voice and data for 6 months. November 8th was the withdrawal of currency notes. And on December 30th, the BHIM application was launched by the Prime Minister. So in the space of 9 months, everything changed. And now, when we look at what's happening, we have 1.4 billion people with a digital ID that's used 25 billion times, 2.5 billion times, 2.25 billion times authentications in a month. We have a very cheap, low-cost eKYC with which you can open an instant bank account. We have something called DigiLocker. Every Indian keeps their documents on their phone, their Aadhaar details, their driver's license, their vehicle, and they just show it anywhere they go. Thanks to the Prime Minister's push on formalization, he really pushed for the GST launch, and the number of formal companies in India has gone from 4 million to 14 million. UPI payments are 16 to 17 billion payments a month. It's now one of the world's largest payment system. FASTag, which unifies all our roads. So we already have great infrastructure and roads built. Complementing that is the FASTag system, something like Easy Pass in the US. But it's a simple single system across the country that does 384 million transactions. Everything. What you're seeing is that in the space of these 9 years from 2016, digital technology has got deeply embedded at scale and has become part of everyday life. Now, what is going to happen next? When you think about the digital revolution in India, you can think about 3 phases. The first phase, when the first phones came in the early days and all that, essentially the device was used for communications and entertainment. And this obviously was US big tech. You had Google and WhatsApp and Instagram and Snapchat and all that stuff. But actually, after that, a lot of it has been done by Indian companies. So the next phase was payments and transactions. We have companies like PhonePe, which actually belongs to Walmart, which has about 350 million people doing payments in a month. We have Meesho, which is a very, very Indian-focused e-commerce platform with 150 million consumers on that platform. We have Physicswala. This young man from UP used the combination of the phone, cheap data from Jio and others, and the YouTube and the UPI payment system, and created a large multi-billion-dollar company on education. So it's been dramatic changes happening there. And today we have companies like Zepto with 222-year-olds providing quick commerce everywhere. You have Rapido, which does 3.5 million rides a day on bike taxis and other things. And then you have a company called Urban Company, which has more than 50,000 people providing beauty services at home, air conditioning repairs, and so on. So you're seeing a revolution happening on the ground on different parts. And the next phase of this revolution is going to be, how do these people use their phone to work, learn, and earn? And that's the next phase. The job creation of the future will happen on the phone, just like everything else so far has happened on the phone. And the number of smartphone users will go from 600 million to 900 million by 2035. These ubiquitous phones everywhere, and the fact that they'll now be used to work and earn. What is fueling this? In India, 10 years back, go back to 2015-16, we had about 1,000 startups. Today, we have 150,000 startups. Our expectation is by 2035, India will have 1 million startups. Very few places in the world have, at that scale, transformed themselves by creating this huge avalanche of entrepreneurs. India is going to have one of the largest Gen Z kids in the world. We'll have about 380 million Gen Z people in 2035. All of them, they became 8 years old when the iPhone was launched. So they're all digitally savvy, AI literate, etc. And these guys are going to run the show for us. I mentioned to you Zepto, two 22-year-old Stanford dropouts have built a multi-billion-dollar company. If you look at Pixel, advanced satellites for hyperspectral satellites, two 27-year-olds. So there's a revolution happening with all these people leading forth. And therefore, you can expect to see 1 million startups by 2035. So when the economy is growing 6 to 8%, the startups are going to grow at 20% a year. And we have not imagined what will this do to this society when there are 1 million ambitious, hungry, young people, men and women, building companies. And this is fueled by a very good debt capital. Today we have all kinds of debt in this country, whether it's venture debt or NBFCs, bank debt. And what's important is here again, a large number of fintechs, of financial technology companies are able to take this ability to every user. So people are able to get loans on their phone and so on. So there's certain democratization happening of credit. And the same thing has happened on the equity side. We now have a full cycle financing model from angel investing to IPOs. So a young company can get money to start a company, often from an entrepreneur who made money on his previous company. He can get venture capital, private equity, and finally he can go to public markets. Today, India is the most preferred IPO market in the world. It has the largest number of IPOs last year at 327, and the companies together raised $20 billion. So the largest market for IPOs in dollar terms is the US, but the largest market for IPOs is India. And this is only going to grow as we look at the next 10 years. In fact, a few years back, most of the companies were actually registered outside. They were in the US or Singapore. They're all flipping back. They're all changing the registration to come back to the Indian capital market because this is where the action is. And many of these companies, Zepto, Razorpay, PhonePe, Pine Labs, have all switched the registration to India and paid a huge amount of taxes because they feel it's still worthwhile to be in India. So basically what you're saying is think about what's happening. 1 million startups in the next 10 years, debt capital of all kinds available to these companies, equity capital from angel to IPO, all there, and the world's best capital markets. So what are you going to see? You haven't seen anything yet. And you're going to see that in the next 10 years when we come back for the 20th anniversary of Raisina. But if you want to go from 6% growth, which we think is assured, to 8% growth, what is it that we need to do? One, we have to use the tools of AI and take it to 1 billion people. India's strength has been how to apply technology at population scale. How do you make it high volume, low cost, cheap, accessible? And we have to do the same with AI and allow people to use AI for education, for health, for language. How do we unite India's hundreds of languages in a way that people can talk to each other using AI? So this is a big part of what we need to do to get to that 8% growth. Second, while we do have a good capital story, there are a couple of things we can do even more. One is the ability of firms to use their own data to get access to credit, called the account aggregator scheme. Today, only about 10% of personal loans in India are using this system, and approximately 10,000 crores, about $1 billion or a little more every month, is being given as credit. We can dramatically change this. That will again democratize financial services. And then, very importantly, 50% of Indian assets are in land. And land is not fungible, land is not tradable, and they are not able to take that asset and do something with it. And with the advent of technologies like tokenization, using public chains, we can make land fungible so people can sell their land or give their land as collateral and get credit. And if we can unlock 50% of the wealth of Indians in a way that they can get access to money, that's another cycle of change we'll bring. And then we have to look beyond the metros. Most of the action today happens in either the top 8 cities or the top 50 cities. But we have to spread this entrepreneurship across the country, especially in parts of India where there's not that much entrepreneurship. And therefore, that's a public policy issue. How do we get entrepreneurship in every nook and corner of the country? And we have 63 million small businesses, but only a handful of them are formalized. If we can get to 10 million formalized businesses out of the 63 million, again, you'll have something great happening. And then, very importantly, we have to turbocharge formalization. India is about 15% formalized, Brazil is about 60% formalized. So clearly, we have a long way to go in terms of formalizing our people. And for that, people should be able to take their experience certificate, go anywhere and get a job. They should be able to take their benefits and go anywhere when they change jobs or become entrepreneurs. And we need a way to deregulate business. And there are many moves afoot. I know Dr. Jaishankar is, they're all prime ministers thinking of the deregulation commission and so on. Fundamentally, we have to make it easier for these millions of businesses, easy for them to do business. Simplify things, reduce compliances, decriminalize laws, reduce the number of, make the language simple. Very basic things you have to do to make turbocharge formalization. So I believe that the economy already has the capacity to grow at 6%, and a few set of reforms, I believe, can take it to even 8%. And where the rest of the world is saying, how do we get growth going? How do we create an internal single market? How do we reduce regulation? India is now a single market of subcontinental proportions. It's a completely single market for labor. You can go anywhere and work. It's a single market for capital. It's a single market for mobile phones, single market for ID, single market for products with GST. And therefore, systematically, the efforts of Prime Minister Modi and his colleagues to simplify the market has created a huge single market. Complementing that, new roads, new airports, new ports, all the infrastructure. So the combination of physical and digital infrastructure has laid the foundation for something that you're going to see in the next 10 years. So I do hope you'll come every year here and see the progress. Thank you very much.